Something I wanted to talk about, is the fundraising journey, and if you could share a little bit more about that, because I know you have some pretty incredible investors like Version One Ventures and Anderson Horowitz. So I'd love to learn a little bit more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm pretty candid about the fundraising stuff. So I'll give it to you all straight. The first round, the pre-seed round, we raised from V1 as well as Pale Blue Dot, which is a climate-focused fund out in Sweden, was like an absolute slog. So it was like the second or third month of COVID. I quit my job with no backup plan, basically. I think Sonder probably would have taken me back. I think they liked me enough. But again, it's good to kind of let's remove all the distractions. And really, I basically had to beg the entire executive team, all my friends who just new venture capitalists, because I knew this needed to be a venture scale business. That had become pretty obvious pretty early on, just because of the necessary R&D investment up front. For any investor intro, I don't care if they're an analyst or a partner, please just put me in touch with anyone. And I basically ended up, I think, speaking to around 40 or 45 firms and got basically 2 yeses out of that. Right. So it's literally 38 consecutive no's and then 2 yeses right at the end. One of them was Angela, one of them was Hampus from Pale Blue Dot. And it's you only need 1 yes. And so that was enough to get us live. To be fair, we literally had 8 slides. That was what we were raising off of. We didn't really have anything else. So I don't necessarily blame the other funds for not betting on us by any means. And then so that was great. We were able to kind of get our feet underneath us and start building and get some early traction. And then the kind of conversation with Andreessen was definitely a little bit easier. So that was actually an inbound through Darcy Coolican, who works at a16z, actually knew Angela quite well because they're both from the Canadian tech ecosystem. And so they actually knew each other. And they actually came about around September or October 2020, asked to have a conversation. We had that conversation. And then, things kind of moved on from there. And then we ended up doing something in December with the seed round. And then the kind of other piece associated with that was Cotu, who led our Series A just the other day. They were the other firm bidding for the seed round. And then they basically weren't able to quite get there at the very end. And so they ended up kind of dropping out of the process at the 11th hour. Again, no problem at all. And then basically I just stayed in touch with them over, I guess it was the following 6 months, just sending them investor updates with some sensitive information removed. And basically just got to the point where they're like, oh, okay, no, this is actually going super well. We want to do the A now. And then the rest is history. So we didn't really do a true proper fundraise for the A, and we did a half process at the seed, and we did a very robust process for the pre-seed.
Yeah, so some familiar names that are also in the community with some of your investors. So that's great to hear.
It was definitely a drag though, the pre-seed, especially the first couple months of COVID, that was quite depressing, honestly. And I have a huge amount of renewed empathy. I was being a founder is tough, but basically being said no to 3 times in a row in a day, and you have to hype yourself up for each conversation so you're not sad on the call, is quite an exercise in emotional labor, and really just keeping the morale high, keeping the serotonin high, hyping yourself up, and then not getting too down on yourself. So much easier said than done, I would say.